They say some moments haunt you forever. And I used to think that was just something people said in movies. A line meant to sound deep, dramatic. But it's real. It's terrifyingly real. Because I have a moment like that. One moment, just a few seconds really, that changed everything. And no matter how many times I try to forget, I still hear the knock on my door. I still remember the way the hallway light hit his face when I opened it. His eyes were soft, hesitant, like he already knew this was a line we weren't supposed to cross. But he asked me anyway, and I said yes. I still don't know why. Or maybe I do. Maybe it's because I hadn't been seen in a long time. Not really seen. Not as a woman. Not as a person with feelings. With needs. And the thing is, this story didn't start with lust. It started with loneliness. It started with silence that got too loud. With a husband who stopped looking at me. With a home full of words that were never said. Have you ever been in a room full of people and still felt completely alone? That was my everyday. And then there was him. My stepson. Even saying that out loud now feels wrong. But I need to say it. I need to tell this because I think someone out there, maybe even you might understand. This isn't a story about seduction. It's about the gray areas no one talks about. It's about how life doesn't give you warning signs before it breaks you open. You can judge me. You can call me anything you want. But before you do, just listen. Listen to the whole story. Because I swear, I didn't go looking for any of this. It just happened. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see that it's not always about right or wrong. Sometimes it's just about being human. So, if you're still here, if you're the kind of person who understands that people are more than just their worst moments, subscribe now to Heartfelt Tales Unfold if you believe the human heart is full of secrets worth sharing. Because this is mine. And it starts on a Sunday afternoon. Right before everything I thought I knew unraveled. I've been married to David for 11 years. At first, we were like any other couple in love, light teasing in the kitchen, whispered jokes at night, fingers grazing when no one was watching. We had something warm, something real. But somewhere along the way, life got louder than we did. Work stress, bills, routines that dulled us. The kind of silence that doesn't scream, just lingers. We stopped talking about the little things. Then the big things. Eventually, we stopped talking at all. He started working later. Coming home drained. Dinner turned into leftovers. Conversations became schedules. And touch? Touch became habit, if it happened at all. It wasn't that he stopped loving me. He just stopped seeing me. You know that feeling? When someone looks right at you, but it's like they're staring through you. That's how it felt with David. Like I was wallpaper in my own home. And then there was Liam. David's son from his first marriage. 17. Almost 18. Quiet, polite. Thoughtful in that observant kind of way. The kind of boy who didn't say much, but when he did, you listened. He had his mother's eyes. Soft but sharp. Like they noticed everything, even the things you were trying to hide. Liam had always spent weekends and school breaks with us. But last summer, he moved in permanently. His mom had taken a job overseas. David insisted this would be good. Family under one roof, he said. It'll bring us closer. Funny how life plays with your expectations. Liam arrived with boxes, headphones, and a cautious kind of energy, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. But he was. Of course he was. I treated him like my own from day one. At first, things were normal. He'd come down for breakfast, earbuds still in. We'd pass each other in the hallway, say goodnight in passing. But slowly, that changed. It started with small things. He began helping me with groceries, offering to do the dishes after dinner. Once, he stayed up to watch a movie with me when David fell asleep on the couch. Just the two of us. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing suggestive. But the way he listened when I talked, the way he looked at me not like I was someone's wife or someone's stepmom, but like I was me, it did something to me. And I noticed. He wasn't just helping to be helpful. He was watching. Not in a creepy way. Just attentive. And that's what caught me off guard. Because attention? When you've been starved of it for so long, it feels like air after drowning. I remember one afternoon. David was working late again. The house was quiet except for the hum of the oven. Liam came into the kitchen, rolled up his sleeves, and started chopping vegetables like it was the most natural thing in the world. We cooked together, talked, laughed at something ridiculous on TV, and at one point, he looked at me and said, "You should laugh more. It suits you." It was such a simple thing, but it landed like a confession. That was the first time I felt something shift. Not with him. With me. I didn't want it to mean anything. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was just touched by kindness. That I was too tired, too lonely, reading into nothing. But deep down I knew. Something was waking up inside me, something I thought had died a long time ago. And the worst part? It felt good. I didn't ask for it. I didn't go looking. But when someone finally sees you, truly sees you, it's hard to close your eyes again. It started with a simple question. One of those everyday, throwaway questions that shouldn't mean anything. But somehow, it opened a door I didn't even know I'd left cracked. Liam walked into the kitchen while I was chopping onions. He leaned against the counter, hands in his hoodie pockets, and said, "Would you teach me how to cook?" Just like that. I looked up, surprised. He was always so quiet, reserved. The kind of boy who mostly stayed out of the way. But there he was, standing in the doorway, waiting. I smiled, trying to keep it light. "Why? Got a date you're trying to impress?" He chuckled and shook his head. "Nah, just figured I should know how to make more than toast and noodles. Thought you might be the best person to learn from." The best person? That shouldn't have hit me the way it did. But God, it did. Because no one had called me the best anything in a long time. So I nodded. "All right, you're officially my sous chef." And that's how it started. Every evening after that, we cooked together. Nothing fancy, omelets, pasta, stir-fry. But those little moments became something more. We laughed over burnt rice. Shared stories. His hand would brush mine as he reached for the spoon. I'd lean in to show him how to season something just right. And he'd listen. Not distracted. Not impatient. He'd listen. Like what I was saying mattered. Like I mattered. One night, I dropped a plate and it shattered across the tile. I knelt down to clean it and Liam crouched beside me, picking up the pieces. I must have sighed. One of those tired, soul-deep sighs you don't even realize you're letting out. He paused, then looked at me and said, "Are you okay?" Just 3 words. But I froze, because I couldn't remember the last time someone had asked me that and actually meant it. Not out of politeness. Not as a formality. Just genuine concern. From someone who noticed. I opened my mouth to lie. To say, "Yeah, I'm fine." But I couldn't. I just looked at him, and for a second, I think he saw the whole storm in my eyes. I laughed it off, eventually. Made some joke about how I was just tired, clumsy. He didn't push. But from that day on, something in the air between us changed. He lingered a little longer after dinner. Stood a little closer when I showed him how to slice onions. And I didn't stop him. Because I liked it. The way he looked at me. Like I was more than someone's wife, or someone's step anything. I was a woman again. And then, one night. It was late. David had gone to bed early, as usual. I was wiping down the counters when Liam came back into the kitchen. His hair was damp from the shower, and he had that nervous energy about him like he'd been rehearsing something in his head. He didn't speak right away. Just leaned on the opposite counter and watched me dry the dishes. And then he said, "Can I ask you something?" I turned, drying my hands on a towel. "Of course." He looked at me. Not like a kid. Not like a stepson. Just a person. He said, "Do you think I'm attractive?" The room went silent. So quiet, I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. My heart skipped. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know how to say anything. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Because no, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for the way his voice trembled slightly when he said it. Or the way he searched my face, looking for something, anything, that might tell him what came next. And the worst part? The part one still hate myself for? Was that a small part of me wanted to say yes. I told myself it was nothing. Just a boy being kind. Just a moment, one of those awkward, fleeting things that don't mean anything if you don't let them. But I knew. God, I knew it meant something to me. And not because of what he said. But because of how it made me feel. Desired. Not in some physical, lustful way, at least not at first. But in that soul-deep, aching way. The kind of desire that reminds you you're still alive. That you're still a woman. Still capable of being wanted. After Liam asked me that question, do you think I'm attractive? He waited for an answer I never gave. I just stood there, blinking, breath caught in my throat. He eventually looked away, muttered, "Sorry, I shouldn't have asked," and disappeared down the hallway. And I just stood in the kitchen, clutching a dish towel like it could anchor me. That night, I laid in bed next to David, my husband, my partner of over a decade, staring at the ceiling. He was snoring softly beside me, turned away, just like every other night. I reached out and touched his back. Lightly. Almost hoping he'd wake up, roll over, ask me what was wrong. But he didn't move. He never moved. And I remembered, months ago, I had told him I was feeling off. Sad. He told me to go get a massage or take a nap. He said, "You're probably just hormonal." And that was it. That was the conversation. That night, I remembered all of it, his dismissal, the emptiness between us, the way his fingers barely grazed mine anymore, even when we shared a bed. And then, in the middle of all that, I thought about Liam. His eyes. His voice when he asked me. Not confident. Not cocky. Just vulnerable. I told myself I was being ridiculous. I was the adult. The responsible one. But responsibility doesn't silence loneliness. It doesn't quiet the echo of your own laughter in a kitchen where no one else is listening. It doesn't fill the space in a bed that's warm but somehow still cold. And when Liam came down the next morning, silent and avoiding my eyes, I felt this twist in my chest. Not guilt. Not yet. It was longing. Longing for the simplicity of that moment again. Of being asked a question that made me feel like more than just someone's wife. Over the next few days, I watched him more closely. He kept his distance. He was polite, as always. But something in him had shifted. Or maybe, something in me had. Was I imagining it? Or had he started lingering when I got dressed in the mornings? Was I reading too much into his smile? Sometimes I'd catch him watching me. Not in a crude way. Just watching, like he was waiting for something. Or maybe hoping I'd say something first. I told myself to ignore it. To brush it off. I cleaned harder. Cooked more. Stayed busy. But it kept creeping in. Every time David canceled dinner plans, or walked past me without noticing my new haircut. Every time I reached for his hand and he was scrolling on his phone. I felt it. That hunger. That whisper of what if. And it scared me. Because I wasn't the type of woman to think about someone else. Let alone someone under my roof. But I was thinking. I was wondering. Not just about Liam. About me. When did I stop feeling like a woman? When did I become just mom, or wife, or background noise? The guilt started as a flicker. A quiet voice in the back of my mind saying, "This is wrong." But then another voice would whisper back, "But what if it feels right?" And somewhere between those two voices, I got lost. I started wearing lipstick again. Started brushing my hair a little slower in the mirror. Started noticing how often Liam passed by the bathroom when I was in it. I told myself it didn't mean anything. That I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just existing. But deep down I knew. I knew I was playing with fire. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to put it out. Or see how close I could get before it burned me. It didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment where everything tipped over. It was little things. Quiet things. Things that on their own might seem innocent, but together, they built a path we shouldn't have walked. It started with the questions. Not casual ones. Not the kind teenagers ask when they're bored or being polite. They were personal. Deliberate. Thoughtful in that way Liam always was. Do you ever miss who you used to be? Did you always know you wanted to be married? Do you think people can fall out of love without realizing it? I'd pause every time. Because they weren't just questions, they were mirrors. Held up to parts of myself I'd been trying not to see. One afternoon, I had just stepped out of the shower. The hallway was quiet. David was at work, and Liam had left earlier to hang out with friends, or so I thought. I had a towel wrapped around me, damp hair clinging to my shoulders, and I walked out of the bathroom humming some tune I didn't even realize was playing in my head. Then I saw him. He was at the other end of the hallway, frozen. And I was frozen too. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. I expected him to turn around, look away. But he didn't, not right away. His eyes met mine, and they didn't drop. He didn't smirk. He didn't leer. He just looked. And in that look, there was 1,000 unspoken things. Curiosity, admiration, longing, and something else, something that scared me because I recognized it. Recognition. I pulled my towel tighter and stepped back into the bathroom. Closed the door gently. Not slammed. Not locked. Just gently. I leaned against it, heart pounding, breathing uneven. I told myself it didn't mean anything. I told myself it was an accident. But I didn't feel like I had just been seen by a boy. I felt like I'd been seen by a man. That night, I tried not to think about it. I sat on the couch watching an old movie David and I used to love. Only this time, I was watching it alone. David was asleep in the bedroom. Halfway through the film, I heard footsteps. Liam. He didn't say anything, just sat beside me. Closer than usual. And after a few minutes, he leaned his head on my shoulder. Just rested it there, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, letting the weight of him anchor me, letting the warmth of his cheek press into my skin. After a while, he whispered, "I trust you more than anyone." His voice cracked. "I can't talk to Dad the way I talk to you. He doesn't listen. Not like you do." My heart shattered and swelled at the same time. I wanted to be what he needed. I wanted to protect him. But part of me also wanted something I hadn't dared name. Something dangerous. Something selfish. A few nights later, the question came again. This time, quiet. Almost cautious. We were folding laundry together, standing side by side, brushing arms. And out of nowhere, he asked, again, softly, "Do you think I'm attractive?" I froze. The air turned thick. The buzz of the dryer was the only sound in the room. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. I should have said no. I should have laughed it off. Redirected. Shut it down. I should have been the adult. I should have reminded him of the lines that couldn't be crossed. But instead, I stood there, not answering, not moving, just still. And that silence? It was louder than a yes. He knew it. And so did I. Later, alone in my room, I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Teenage confusion. A phase. A boy looking for validation. But deep down, I wasn't lying to him. I was lying to myself. Because it wasn't about what he was asking. It was about how it made me feel to be asked. Wanted. Noticed. Alive. And even though I hadn't touched him, hadn't kissed him, or crossed that final line my heart already had, I was standing in the middle of a tightrope. One I had built myself. And I didn't know if I wanted to get off it or see how long I could keep my balance. It was raining. Not just a soft drizzle, but the kind that drums hard against the windows and soaks into your bones. David had left that morning for a 3-day work trip, another conference in another city, Another string of days where I'd eat dinner alone and sleep beside cold sheets. The house felt still, too quiet. That kind of quiet that makes your thoughts loud. I had just finished folding the last of the laundry. The storm outside had turned the sky a deep gray, the kind of gray that makes the world feel smaller. I didn't hear Liam approach, just the soft knock on my bedroom door. I opened it to find him standing there, barefoot, hoodie hanging damp around his shoulders. His hair was wet. He looked like he'd stepped out into the storm just to feel something. And maybe he had. He looked at me with this weight behind his eyes, like he'd been carrying something for too long and finally decided to lay it down. He didn't say hello, didn't smile. He just said, "I have a request." His voice was barely above a whisper. I stepped aside, letting him in before I even realized what I was doing. He sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped, shoulders tense, the rain tapping steadily against the window behind him. Then, without looking up, he said, "I've never kissed anyone. Not really. And I know it's stupid, but I want to know what it's like. I want it to mean something. I want it to be with someone I trust." He looked up at me then. "And I trust you." There were 1,000 things I should have said. 1,000 ways I could have drawn a line, built a wall, protected us both from what was coming. But I didn't. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no. And sometimes, silence is louder than consent. He stood slowly, like he was giving me time to stop him. Time to remind him of what this was, what it wasn't supposed to be. But I didn't move. I watched him take one step closer, and then another. And when his hands gently brushed mine, I didn't pull away. When his eyes searched my face, waiting for rejection, I let him find something else. Something open, something aching. And when he kissed me soft, trembling, hesitant, I didn't stop him. I didn't guide it. I didn't deepen it. But I let it happen. And in that moment, I forgot everything. My name, my age, my guilt, my title. I just felt alive. Not proud, not even safe, but alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't reckless. It was tender, scared, fragile. Two people, one too young to fully understand what he was asking for, and one too hollow to admit what she was giving into. When it ended, he didn't say a word. He just looked at me, eyes wide, breath shaky, then turned and quietly left the room. And I stood there, still, alone, listening to the storm outside, and the one that had just started inside me. The next morning, Liam couldn't look me in the eyes. He came downstairs late, later than usual. His hair was still damp, his hoodie pulled tight over his head like he wanted to disappear inside it. He mumbled something about not being hungry and grabbed his backpack off the counter. Didn't touch his coffee. Didn't wait for me to say anything. Just left. And I stood there, in the middle of the kitchen, my hands wrapped around a mug I wasn't drinking from, wondering if the walls could feel the shift, too. Because something was different. Something essential had changed. He avoided me. Not in a childish, dramatic way. He didn't slam doors or roll his eyes. He just disappeared in plain sight. He moved around the house like a ghost. If I entered the living room, he left. If I started talking, he kept his replies short, clipped. And every now and then, I'd catch him glancing at me just a flicker before his eyes darted away like it hurt to hold my gaze. And it did hurt, because I didn't know if he regretted it, or if he was afraid I did. The guilt came slow, like a cold draft under the door. At first, I tried to bury it in routine. Laundry, cleaning, chores, cooking meals no one commented on. But nothing tasted right. Nothing felt steady. And I couldn't breathe around him. The silence between us wasn't just awkward, it was loud. Too loud. And the worst part? I kept pretending. I acted like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't kissed me. Like I hadn't let him. like we weren't unraveling in front of each other in slow motion. David came home 3 days later. Walked in with that same travel-weary sigh he always carried after a trip. He kissed my cheek out of habit, dropped his bag in the hallway, and I watched him like he was a stranger in our home. His voice too loud, his laugh too forced. He talked about his meetings, his hotel, the flight delay. But something felt off. Not because he knew anything, but because I did. And suddenly, everything about our life together felt staged. Like I was living in a house built on sand. That night at dinner, we all sat around the table, David, Liam, and me. The three of us. And it was unbearable. Liam barely touched his food. He kept his head down, chewing slowly, mechanically, like he was counting the bites just to make it through. David didn't notice. Of course he didn't. He never noticed. He asked Liam how school was. Liam shrugged and said, "Fine." That was it. That was the whole conversation. But I noticed Liam's fingers twitching slightly against his fork, his leg bouncing under the table. I could feel his tension in my own chest. And I could feel mine, drowning me. That night, David fell asleep watching TV, as usual. I lay next to him in bed, staring at the ceiling again. Just like before. But I wasn't numb anymore. I was aware. Of every breath. Of every thought. Of the weight of what I'd allowed. I heard Liam's door creak open down the hall. Not footsteps. Not movement. Just that one creak. And it sent a chill down my spine. He didn't come to me. And I didn't go to him. But the air was thick with what we didn't say. And the space between us, between all three of us, was no longer safe. Was I a monster? Or just broken in places no one could see? That question followed me everywhere. It lingered in the corners of my reflection when I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair. It echoed in my footsteps as I walked down the hall. It clung to the smell of morning coffee and the sound of David's snoring. I looked the same. Same skin. Same smile. Same woman on the outside. But inside, everything had shifted. And I started to question who I really was. Was I still a good wife? Was I still someone deserving of love, of trust? Or had I let one moment, one soft, stolen moment, redefine me forever? I'd always believed I was the kind of woman who knew where the lines were. The kind who stayed loyal, who carried the weight of her vows even when they got heavy. But maybe I was never that woman. Maybe I just never had a reason to test it. And Liam, he wasn't the villain. He wasn't some manipulator or some boy trying to chase a fantasy. He was lonely. Like me. He was confused, curious, craving connection. And I gave it to him. I gave him something I should have kept locked away. Not just affection. Not just a kiss. I gave him a version of myself I didn't even recognize. A version that wanted to be wanted. That wanted to feel real again. And what scared me most was that I didn't regret it. Not fully. I regretted the situation. The pain. The mess. The tension that grew between us like mold in the walls. But the feeling of being seen, of being touched gently, deliberately with care, I didn't regret that. And that's the part one can't say out loud. Not to anyone. Because it makes me feel inhuman. It makes me wonder if maybe the loneliness cracked something inside me that can't be repaired. I tried to throw myself into distractions. Date nights with David, even when we barely spoke. More time at the gym. More phone calls with friends I hadn't talked to in years. But nothing could drown out the question that kept clawing at me when the house got quiet again. If Liam knocked on my door again, if he stood there with the rain in his hair, eyes soft, voice shaking, asking for another moment, would I open it? Would I pull him in again? Would I say no this time? Would I even want to? And that uncertainty, that war inside me, is what keeps me awake at night. Because sometimes, the real betrayal isn't in the act. It's in the fact that you'd still choose it, even knowing how much it would cost. Have you ever agreed to something, not because you truly wanted it, but because you were afraid of what would happen if you said no? Afraid of hurting someone. afraid of disappointing them, afraid of staying invisible. That's the part one don't think people understand. It's not always about desire. Sometimes, it's about desperation. Desperation to feel something, to be something. Do you think I'm to blame? Do you think I crossed a line that should never have even been near my feet? Or was I just a woman, trying to matter again? Trying to feel like I still existed in a world that had stopped making room for me? Tell me in the comments, was this betrayal? Or was it emotional survival? Was it weakness? Or was it the kind of flaw we all carry deep down when no one's watching? Because I don't pretend to be perfect. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm just telling the truth. My truth. And maybe, just maybe, there's someone out there who understands. Someone who's been there. Who's walked to the edge of something unthinkable and looked down. If these stories stir something in you, if they make you pause, make you question, make you feel, then like this video. And subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We unravel the human heart. Narrator. Haunting, slow sometimes, the most dangerous doors aren't the ones that creak open. They're the ones we leave unlocked, hoping someone will walk through. And they do. Sometimes gently. Sometimes all at once. Loneliness doesn't always scream. It doesn't come crashing in. It waits. Quietly. In the corner of the room. In the pause between conversations. In the silence between footsteps. It waits. Until your guard drops. Until you stop checking the locks. Until the ache becomes louder than your judgment. So be careful with who you confide in. Especially when your heart is starving. Because sometimes, all it takes is one knock. One question. One moment. And everything you thought you knew about love, about loyalty, about yourself begins to unravel. And by the time you realize it, it's already too late to go back.